They call Payroll a back-office utility, like the water pipes in the basement. Nobody thinks about the plumbing until the toilets back up and raw sewage starts floating into the executive suites. For 21 years, I was the invisible hand keeping the financial pipes from bursting at Omnicorp. My name is Brian Vance. I am 54 years old, and I drive a 10-year-old sedan that smells of wet dog and cold coffee. My office was a windowless cubicle tucked behind the server room, where the hum of cooling fans rattled the fillings in your teeth. I liked the hum. It drowned out the sound of the marketing team upstairs. To the executives on the top floor, payroll is just a button. They think a magical software package takes their numbers and distributes them into 12,000 bank accounts with a puff of digital smoke. It is not. Our system is a bloated dinosaur, a relic from the late 90s that has not been supported by its vendor since the first term of the Obama administration. The board refused to upgrade because a new enterprise system would cost $2 million, so they kept patching a car that was missing its engine. The only reason 12,000 employees received their direct deposits every other Friday was because of 4 scripts I wrote and maintained. They ran locally under my personal user token, Vance Atzman. The first script was the scrubber. Every pay period, the sales department uploaded a massive spreadsheet of commissions. Salespeople are notoriously sloppy. They would type letters in numerical fields or put dollar signs where they did not belong. If you fed that raw data into the main system, it would seize up like a seized engine, requiring a manual database rollback. My scrubber script intercepted the file, stripped the garbage, and reformatted the columns so the database could read them without choking. The second script was the handshake. 5 years ago, our clearinghouse bank upgraded its security, requiring a modern encrypted connection. Our legacy system could only speak an obsolete, unsecure protocol. The company refused to pay $280,000 for the vendor upgrade, so I spent 3 weeks writing a middleware translator. It took the outgoing transaction data, wrapped it in a secure encryption coat, and tricked the bank into believing we were running a modern system. The third script was the silencer. Our database suffered from a severe memory leak. If it ran for more than 18 days without a cache flush, it would consume all the random access memory on the server and crash the operating system. The silencer ran every Sunday night at midnight, clearing the buffer and suppressing the thousands of warnings that would otherwise flood the automated helpdesk system. The fourth script was the dispatcher. It was the final step of the chain, running every other Thursday at 3 o'clock in the morning. It compiled the final verified payroll batch, encrypted the transmission, and pushed the direct deposit orders directly to the Federal Reserve Automated Clearinghouse Gateway. Nobody knew these scripts existed. To the company, I was just Brian, the quiet guy in the gray cardigans who made sure they could afford groceries. They looked at me and saw office furniture. You do not thank the air conditioner for blowing cold air, and you do not thank the payroll administrator for making sure your mortgage check does not bounce. I was perfectly content with that. I wanted to do my job, drink my black coffee, and go home to my cat, Max. Then Julian Brooks arrived as the new chief financial officer. He was 38 years old, had a jawline that looked like it had been carved out of pure vanity, and held a degree from a business school that charged 6 figures to teach students how to use words like synergy and agility without laughing. Julian did not walk through the office. He strutted like a peacock in a custom-tailored suit that cost more than my first 3 cars combined. He was hired to modernize the finance department and cut costs, which is corporate speak for firing the people who do the work and replacing them with cheap software that does not work. Our first meeting set the tone. Julian walked into my cubicle, stood behind my chair, and stared at my triple monitor setup. He did not say hello. He just pointed a manicured finger at my screens. "Why do you need 3 monitors, Brian?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. "A focused worker only needs 1 screen. The rest is just digital clutter." "I keep the live database transmission log on the left, the audit trail on the center, and the bank encryption monitor on the right," I replied, keeping my voice flat. "If I miss data mismatch on the left, the warehouse workers do not get paid their overtime. If they do not get paid, they strike, and your supply chain stops. Julian let out a short, dry chuckle. That is a very legacy way of thinking, he said, tapping something into his phone. We are moving toward a cloud-based system. Automation is the future. We need to eliminate tribal knowledge so that the company is not dependent on individuals. Tribal knowledge is what executives call expertise when they are frustrated, that they do not understand how their own business operates. Over the next month, Julian went on a cost-cutting rampage. He fired the veteran IT security manager who warned him about network vulnerabilities, replaced our break room coffee with a brand that tasted like burnt grass, and held weekly innovation summits where we were forced to toss a rubber ball around and discuss how to disrupt our industry. He was looking at my salary, which had grown to $115,000 over my 2 decades of service, and doing the math. To him, I was just a line item, an expensive relic who did not use Slack emojis or show up to the voluntary Thursday happy hours. He saw an easy target. He had no idea that the system he was planning to disrupt was a delicate house of cards, and that my user token was the only thing keeping the wind from blowing it all away. I could have explained the architecture to him. I could have shown him the scripts. But you cannot explain physics to a man who believes gravity is just a suggestion. The tension in the office was thick. My coworkers walked around with a hunted look. 2 days before the end of the fiscal quarter, a calendar invitation popped up in my inbox. The subject line was Transition Sync, organized by Julian Brooks and the Human Resources Director, Diana Kelly. Diana was a corporate executioner who wore a permanent painted-on smile that made her look like a robot. I took a slow sip of my cold coffee, looking at my triple monitor setup and the cascading waterfalls of green text against the black backgrounds. I reached into my desk drawer, pulled out a flash drive, and quietly began backing up my personal files. I did not copy any proprietary company data. I only took my personal cheat sheets, systems logic maps, and custom documentation. The meeting was in 15 minutes. I smoothed my shirt and walked toward the glass-walled conference room we called the fishbowl. It sat in the center of the open plan office, ensuring everyone could watch you get executed. Julian was already sitting at the head of the table, leaning back in his expensive chair like he was posing for a business magazine. Diana sat next to him, holding a thick manila folder as if it were holy scripture. She gave me that specific, practiced look of sympathetic regret that human resources managers learn in training. It was a facial expression designed to say, "I am sorry I have to ruin your life, but it is just company policy. Brian, please take a seat," Julian said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. He did not stand. I sat down and folded my hands on the table. I did not bring a notebook, a pen, or a laptop. I just brought my quiet gaze, which I fixed directly on the bridge of Julian's nose. Julian clapped his hands together once. "We have been conducting a thorough review of the department's structural efficiency, looking for bottlenecks and redundant roles," he began, his voice smooth and empty of emotion. "Redundant roles," I repeated, keeping my tone perfectly monotone. "Exactly," Julian said, nodding. "We are migrating to a cloud-native payroll interface next quarter. It is going to be intuitive, drag and drop, and very sleek. We will no longer need manual intervention to process the payroll." "Manual intervention," I said. I was almost enjoying the spectacle. Julian was describing a sleek sports car to a mechanic who knew the vehicle was being sold without an engine. "Julian, the current legacy mainframe processes complex commissions for our multi-state sales force. The cloud software you are planning to purchase, is it the standard version from Payflow Pro?" Julian blinked, surprised that I knew the vendor name. "Yes, it is their top-tier package," he replied. "That package does not support multi-state retroactive overtime adjustments," I said simply. "I wrote a custom compliance patch to handle that in 2021. If you migrate to that software without porting that mathematical logic, you will be violating state labor laws in California, Illinois, and New York within the very first pay cycle. Under California Labor Code Section 510, you will be liable for unpaid overtime and statutory penalties." Julian waved his hand dismissively, as if swatting away a persistent fly. "The integration consultants assured us, it is a turnkey solution, Brian. We appreciate your steady hand over the years, but you represent a legacy mindset. We need agility. We need digital natives." "I see," I replied, looking him in the eye. "I am too old. That is what you are saying. Oh no, not at all, Diana chimed in, her voice rising an octave in artificial alarm. It is not about age, Brian. It is about skill alignment and the restructuring of our corporate resources. Julian leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table and putting on his best leadership face. We are eliminating the position of systems administrator. The position is redundant, and the new cloud software manages itself. Today will be your last day with Omnicorp. There it was. The corporate execution wrapped in a severance package. Diana slid the manila folder across the table toward me. We have prepared a generous transition package, she said. It includes 3 weeks of pay for every year of service, but it is strictly contingent on a smooth handover of all credentials, immediate departure from the premises, and your signature on this non-disclosure agreement. Immediate departure, I said, raising an eyebrow. Standard security protocol, Julian said, tapping his watch. We need your security badge and your company laptop. Our systems administrator team has already disabled your network access as of 15 minutes ago. A cold smile spread inside my chest, though my face remained a mask of polite indifference. Inside I was grinning. They had disabled my network access, but they had not wiped the locally scheduled tasks on the server itself, because they did not even know where to look. And by locking me out 15 minutes ago, they had prevented me from migrating the 4 core scripts to a service account, or turning off the automated triggers. They were firing the pilot mid-flight and celebrating because they saved money on the captain's salary. The automated system is a delicate engine, Julian, I said softly. You cannot run a train without tracks. We are upgrading the train to a hyperloop, Brian. Julian scoffed. We do not need track inspectors anymore. I stood up. I did not argue. I did not scream, and I did not throw the folder in his face. I knew something he did not. I knew that efficiency without understanding is just financial suicide with better marketing. I will pack my desk, I said. 2 security guards, men named Logan and Keith, whom I had greeted every morning for years, were waiting outside the door. They looked embarrassed and refused to meet my eyes. I walked back to my cubicle, the 2 guards trailing behind me like handlers escorting a convict. The office was dead silent. Every head was bowed, nobody wanting to catch the infection of unemployment. I reached my desk and looked at the black monitors. The screen read account disabled. It was perfect. I picked up my framed photo of my cat, Max, my favorite coffee mug, and a small desk plant. I handed my laptop and security badge to Logan. Take care of yourself, Brian, Logan muttered. I nodded, walked to the elevator, and stepped into the afternoon heat. The countdown had officially begun. The drive home was a blur of strip malls and quiet fury. You know that feeling when you bite your tongue, that sharp, metallic taste of blood in your mouth? That is what my brain felt like. I had spent 21 years keeping that corporate ship afloat. I had come in on holidays when the server room flooded, and I had manually re-entered data for 450 employees during the great database crash of 2011 just so people could buy Christmas presents. And for what? To be escorted out of the building like a shoplifter. I got home, walked into the kitchen, and set my box of desk items on the counter. My cat, Max, looked at me with a judgmental, half-closed squint. Yeah, I am home early, I told him, scratching him behind the ears. Do not get used to it. I am technically unemployed. I did not cry. I did not scream. Instead, I made banana bread. That is what I do when I want to commit murder. I mash bananas. I beat the hell out of the batter with a wooden spoon. It is deeply therapeutic. While the oven preheated, I sat at my kitchen table with my personal laptop, a beat-up machine running Linux, and opened a secure terminal. Before any compliance officers start panicking, let me clarify. I did not hack the company. I did not touch their servers. I would never give Julian the satisfaction of a lawsuit. I was simply checking my external monitor. Years ago, I had set up a simple ping script from my home network just to notify me if the company payroll server was online. It was a heartbeat monitor, pinging every 30 seconds, returning response times of 15 milliseconds. The heart was still beating. For now, let me explain the exact technical nature of the disaster Julian had initiated when he ordered Diana to disable my user account, Vance Admin. Because of executive laziness and my own competence, my user token had become the de facto service account for the 4 core scripts. The first script, the scrubber, was now dead. The next time the sales department uploaded their commission spreadsheets, there would be no filter. Salespeople always include currency signs, letters, and random spaces in their files. Without the scrubber to clean that data, the raw spreadsheet would import directly into the database. The mainframe would immediately reject the invalid formats, freeze the entire transaction batch, and lock the system. The second, script the handshake, was also dead. The clearinghouse bank required a modern connection. My translator script handled that connection, but it ran using the authentication token of my disabled user profile. The next time the mainframe attempted to transmit payment files to the bank's firewall would look at the obsolete protocol, find no valid encryption handshake, and treat the transmission as an unauthorized intrusion. The bank would immediately block the connection. The third script, the silencer, was dead. The database memory leak was now unmanaged. Without the automated clearing routine running every Sunday night to wipe the temporary tables, the operating system would continue to bleed memory. Within a few days, the server's random access memory would spike to 99%, causing the machine to seize up completely. The fourth script, the dispatcher, was dead. This was the trigger that compiled the ACH files and pushed them to the federal gateway. It relied entirely on my profile's scheduling credentials. Without those credentials, the dispatcher would simply refuse to execute. The system would loop indefinitely. Attempting to run a command, it no longer had permission to execute, generating thousands of error logs per second and filling the server's hard drive space until the entire system crashed. I pulled the banana bread out of the oven. The warm, sweet scent filled the kitchen. It smelled like victory. I opened my phone. A human resources exit survey link had been sent to my personal email. The form asked for my reason for leaving, and I typed involuntary separation. Then I reached the additional comments section. I wrote, "Please ensure that the automated scripts running on server Payroll 04 are migrated to a dedicated service account immediately." I stared at the text on the screen for a moment, and then I hit backspace, deleting the sentence. Why should I help them? Julian had declared that manual intervention was no longer needed. If I intervened, I would be holding their hand from beyond the grave. Julian wanted to play the role of the modern executive. It was time for him to learn that adults must clean up their own messes. I closed my laptop. 3 days passed. I spent them working in my garden, pulling weeds and trimming the hydrangeas. I reorganized my spice rack. I watched daytime television. I drank a glass of wine in the early afternoon. It was glorious. On the fourth day, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from Kevin Foster, the junior payroll clerk. Kevin was 29 years old, a decent kid who was just innocent collateral damage in Julian's war. "Hey Brian," Kevin wrote. "Things are really strange here. The payroll system is incredibly slow, and the database keeps throwing an error during the sales import. It says error 104. Format mismatch. Do you know what that means?" I looked at the text message. I liked Kevin, but if I helped him, I would be saving Julian. I typed back, "I am sorry, Kevin. I no longer work there, and I do not have access to the system. You should ask Julian. He has a plan for the transition. He is in a meeting with the integration consultants right now," Kevin replied. "They are telling him it is a network latency issue." I laughed out loud. Network latency. That is the universal code, for we have no idea what is happening. So we are blaming the invisible cables. I texted back, "Good luck, Kevin," and set my phone to do not disturb. The pay cycle was scheduled to execute on Monday night. Today was Thursday. The memory leak was likely at 80% capacity, the sales spreadsheet was locked in the queue, and the bank handshake was about to fail. I poured myself another glass of wine. The storm was coming, and I had already left the coast. Friday morning arrived. In the world of payroll, the Friday before pay week is D-Day. It is the high-stress window where you verify the totals, audit the variance reports, and stage the files for transmission. I was at a local department store buying decorative throw pillows when my phone began to vibrate in my pocket. I ignored it. It buzzed again, then again. I looked at the screen and saw the office area code, but the number was unknown. I let it go to voicemail. I could easily picture the scene inside the building. The server was starting to choke, its random access memory filling up with temporary junk data that my silencer script would have vacuumed up. Later that afternoon, I checked social media. Julian had posted a photograph of himself standing in front of a whiteboard covered in meaningless arrows. The caption read, "Disrupting the status quo, excited to lead our finance team into a new era of agility. Sometimes you have to break the old molds," I chuckled. Julian had not broken a mold. He had removed the load-bearing wall. By Saturday night, the payroll server was likely in critical condition. The central processing unit usage would be spiking to 95%. But the security manager who used to monitor weekend alerts had been fired, so the red warning lights were flashing in an empty room. Sunday night, the dispatcher script attempted to transmit the ACH file to the clearinghouse bank. The bank's gateway demanded authentication, but the system presented my disabled credentials. Access was denied. Programmed decades ago, the script did not abort. It simply entered an infinite retry loop, generating thousands of logs per second. By Monday morning, the hard drive was full, memory was exhausted, and the operating system collapsed. I woke up Monday to 19 missed calls. 5 from Kevin, 2 from Diana, 5 from IT Director George Cooper, and 7 from Julian. Kevin sounded on the verge of tears in his voicemail. "Brian, please pick up," he pleaded. "Nothing is working. The portal is down, the screens are blank, and Julian is screaming at everyone in the hallway. If you know how to fix this, call me." I deleted the message, feeling a brief pang of guilt for Kevin. He was a good kid, but he was collateral damage. Next, I listened to George Cooper's message. "Brian, it is George," the IT director said, his voice flat with exhaustion. "The server is completely bricked. We cannot even establish a remote connection because the hard drive is full of logs. Did you change the administrator password before you left? Just tell me, and I will keep it between us." "We are drowning." I had not changed the password. I had simply taken the engine room keys. I made coffee, put on jazz, and decided to visit the local zoo, turning off my phone. In the corporate world, silence is your loudest weapon. If you argue, you are just a disgruntled ex-employee. If you vanish, you become a legend. I spent the afternoon watching the gorillas, noting their social structure was far more logical than ours. If their leader behaved like an idiot, they threw debris at him until he stopped. When I turned my phone back on at 5 o'clock, the screen strobed with notifications. Diana from Human Resources had sent 3 messages, with the final one stating that they were prepared to discuss a consulting fee. There it was, the magic words, but the pain had not set in deep enough yet. Julian's ego was still intact. I logged into the public-facing read-only view of the company's general communication channel. It was a digital war zone. Employees were complaining that their pay stubs were missing, and the warehouse manager had posted a warning stating that his crew would refuse to load the shipping trucks if their deposits did not hit by midnight. Julian had posted a response. "Team, we are experiencing a minor technical migration issue with the new payroll interface. Rest assured, our top engineers are on it. Thank you for your agility." On Tuesday morning, the scheduled deposits did not arrive. The phone rang, and I saw Julian's private number on the screen. I answered. "Hello," I said cheerfully. Julian's voice was tight and raspy. He sounded as if he had not slept in days. "It is Julian. We have an operational issue. The payroll server is locked, the database is throwing handshake errors, and the sales files are corrupted." "That sounds like a challenge for your new cloud interface," I replied. "Is the drag-and-drop system not working?" "The cloud integration is not live yet," Julian hissed. "We had to run the legacy mainframe one last time, but it is broken. George Cooper says there were scripts running under your profile, Vance Admin, and they stopped when we disabled your account. We need the credentials to restart them." "There are no passwords, Julian," I said. "Those scripts run using my user token, which you deleted. To restart them, you would need to rebuild the logic from scratch or reactivate my profile. But that would violate your security protocols, would it not?" "I can reactivate your account right now," Julian said quickly. "Just tell us how to trigger the queue." "I cannot do that, Julian. Accessing your network as a civilian would violate the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act under Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 1030. I signed a non-disclosure agreement, and I must respect the boundaries you established." Julian was silent for a long moment. "Name your price," he finally said. "I do not have a price, Julian," I said. "I have a pot roast in the oven. Good luck with the agility." I hung up the phone and blocked his number, By Wednesday morning, the story had leaked to a local business blog. Omnicorp misses payday for 12,000 employees. Missing payroll for a public logistics company is a catastrophic event. It triggers audits, union walkouts, and immediate investor panic. At 10 o'clock, I received a message on my professional networking profile from Charles Kensington, the chairman of the board. "Brian, this is Charles Kensington," it read. "We need to talk, not about a job, but about resolving a disaster. Please call my office." I smiled, watered my hydrangeas, and let the chairman wait for an hour. I let Charles Kensington wait for an hour. You do not return a call from the board chairman on the first ring. It makes you look desperate. I cleaned the gutters, poured tea, and sat in my favorite armchair before dialing. "Brian," Charles said, his voice deep and gravelly. "Thank you for returning my call." "I have free time these days, Mr. Kensington. Since I was transitioned," I replied. "Yes, I heard about that," Charles sighed. "Julian Brooks tells me you are holding the payroll database hostage." I laughed. "Hostage, Mr. Kensington?" Julian fired the pilot, threw the parachute away, and is now blaming gravity for the crash. "I have not touched your network. The system collapsed because it requires an operator, and Julian replaced the operator with a slideshow about synergy. I refuse to log in as a civilian without authorization." Charles was silent. "We will send over a consulting agreement," he said. "We will triple your previous hourly rate. Just get the transactions processed, Brian. The unions are threatening a walkout by noon tomorrow." "No, Mr. Kensington," I said. "I do not want a temporary hourly contract, and I want nothing signed by Julian. If I return, it is to restore order, not to patch a leak so Julian can fire me again. These are my terms. First, Julian Brooks is terminated immediately for cause. Incompetence will suffice. Second, I report directly to the board until a competent chief financial officer is hired. Third, a written apology from Julian is sent to the entire company, admitting that the payroll delay was a management planning error regarding personnel decisions. "That is humiliating," Charles said. "So was being escorted out of the building by security guards. After 21 years of perfect service," I replied. "Humility builds character. Julian could use some." "I need an hour," Charles said. "Take two, Mr. Kensington. I am going to watch television." 45 minutes later, my phone pinged. Julian Brooks had resigned as chief financial officer. Minutes after, a company-wide email hit my inbox, apologizing for the transition planning oversight regarding key technical personnel. Finally, a consulting contract arrived from Charles's legal team. The hourly rate was quadruple my old salary, granting me full autonomy over the payroll systems. I signed on my phone and replied, "I am on my way." I did not put on a suit. I wore my worn jeans and a gray hoodie. When I parked in the visitor lot and walked to the entrance, Logan was standing at the door. He saw me coming and opened it. "Brian, thank God," Logan whispered. "My wife was about to make me call the bank about our mortgage." "Do not worry, Logan," I said. "I am here to turn the water back on." The office felt like a bunker during an air raid. The lights seemed too bright, and the employees were whispering. When I walked past, the whispering stopped. I went straight to the server room, propping the door open. Inside, George Cooper and 3 junior administrators were sweating in front of the console. The room was hot, the air conditioning struggling against the server racks. George looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "Brian," he breathed, "is it true? Is Julian gone?" "He is pursuing other opportunities, George. Now, please move." I sat in the administrator's chair. The screen was a solid wall of red text displaying the retry storm. I plugged in my laptop, opened the terminal, and terminated the loop. The scrolling red text stopped, the fans slowed, and the room grew quiet. I purged 45 gigabytes of error logs, freeing hard drive space. The database had crashed mid-write, but my third script had cached the data in a hidden directory. I restored the database, returning the system to green status. Diana Kelly rushed in, holding a flash drive. "Here is the sales file," she gasped. I imported the spreadsheet through my scrubber script, which corrected 412 formatting errors automatically. I queued the master payroll file and ran the handshake script. The clearinghouse bank accepted our encryption token, and I transmitted the batch. The deposits would hit accounts by morning. I stood up and grabbed my bag. "George, do not touch the server tonight," I said. "I will patch the memory leak permanently tomorrow. I bill by the hour now, and I am going home." I walked to the elevator. When the doors opened in the lobby, I saw Julian standing near the exit, holding a cardboard box filled with his desk items. He looked pale and hollow. He looked at me, then down at his shoes. "I tried to modernize the department," he mumbled. "I just wanted to make it better." "You did not want to make it better, Julian," I said as I stepped into the elevator. "You wanted to make it yours. There is a difference." The doors closed, hiding his face. The next few months were a masterclass in vindication. The board appointed a new chief financial officer, a woman named Barbara, who was 60 years old and understood legacy databases. We worked together perfectly, and her first decision was to approve the budget for a complete system modernization. I spent my days documenting every line of custom code, building a comprehensive manual so that the system would never be dependent on a single person again. I trained Kevin Foster to take over the administration, teaching him how to monitor the server and maintain the databases. 8 months later, the new modernized system was officially live, and my consulting work was complete. I wrote my final email to Barbara and Charles Kensington, stating that Kevin was fully prepared to manage the department. I handed Kevin a final flash drive containing a few custom utilities. "Do not let human resources know this exists," I told him with a smile. I walked out of the building on a Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. The sun was warm. I got into my new sedan, fully paid for with my consulting earnings, put on some music, and drove toward the highway. Everyone is replaceable in the corporate world, but the cost of that replacement is the variable they always forget. I was no longer the payroll admin. I was just Brian, and for the first time in 21 years, that was more than enough.